Hello and welcome to this presentation, which is titled The University of Dundee Visiting Scholarship and Teaching Digital Storytelling to Secondary Students, an Autoethnographic Study of Teaching Methods. My name is Dr. Christina L. Romero-Ivanova. I'm an Assistant Professor of Education at Indiana University Kokomo, and I hope you enjoy my presentation. Just a little bit of background on digital storytelling practices. So digital storytelling is an engaging practice. We know this. And students' voices and their experiential knowledge can be shared and privileged inside of the classroom. Paul and Russell 2010 refer to the critical narrative as one that contains images, music, text, or vocalization and embedded meanings. This critical aspect of storytelling can then be evidenced as students plan and then construct their storying in a digital format. Coming back to Paul and Russell's perspectives on relational learning, when students plan and use critical thinking to research problematic issues associated with crucial events, the storying process can become relational. And so this is talking about their ability to grow empathy, to appreciate others' events and their storied lives. So why is this study going to be significant? Well, research has investigated different practices, teachers' practices, guiding the writing process, the digital narrative construction, but little research has been conducted on digital storytelling teaching practices, especially within international secondary contexts, and as narrative autoethnographic work. So the research design that I'm using for this study conceptualizes digital storytelling practices from my own teaching and thinking about the stories in the forms of data and focusing on self-behaviors and self-practices. So that's why it is different than what has already been done. The purpose of this research study, this project, will involve a 2-week visiting scholarship that I have received to the University of Dundee in Dundee, Scotland in spring 2022. And I will be providing on-campus presentations, workshops on digital storytelling and narrative practices to the Dundee School of Education and Social Work as a way to give back, right? Reciprocity. The project will mainly focus on narrative autoethnographic digital storytelling teaching practices in which I will be doing research while teaching digital storytelling at a local secondary school in Dundee, Scotland. And I will be focusing again on those practices through various data collective methods that I will mention in a little while. The study is not longitudinal in nature at this stage. It's a 2-week study, so those are a couple of limitations. Although this is a 2-week study, I will be teaching digital storytelling for more than one secondary class every day during the school week. I will also be using such things like member checking with the students, with my colleagues at the school who are teachers, principal, and also with a colleague who will be joining me from the University of Dundee School of Education and Social Work. So those methods will help me to keep the research ethical and will help me to check for validity. So moving right toward the research questions now, and the central question, the main research question is, what are one education professor's practices that she uses to teach digital storytelling in an international secondary school setting to secondary students? That's the main question. Follow-up questions that will help me to arrive at this central question are, how does one education professor autoethnographically reflect on her teaching practices, and how do one education professor's digital storytelling teaching practices, including storing her own digital story, contribute to students' ways of creating their own digital stories? I want to know how my practices are impacting, right, secondary students and their own creations of digital stories. So there's been an abundance of research that has centered on different aspects of digital storytelling, thinking about that storytelling as student-centered practice, right? Centering on students' own lived experiences and digital storytelling as a way to enhance their stories, to privilege their voices, and extend learning. We have done research in many different spaces to think about how digital storytelling can connect or provide a connection, rather, between students' social identities and their presence in online spaces, for example. Our climate right now in our current globalized society has made others, especially young people, feel very anxious and uncertain, right, about the future, about what's going on with COVID-19, school shootings, various kinds of problems in our society. And so now is a time to be able to create spaces that privilege those crucial experiences, and to also think about dark funds of knowledge, right? Those pieces of knowledge that students, young people have from trauma, from their understandings of having gone through difficult social issues and violence. The design of my research study is a 2-week visiting scholarship with presentations at the University of Dundee School of Education and Social Work, and being able to teach digital storytelling to classes of secondary students at a local secondary school in Dundee, Scotland. And of course, it is a narrative autoethnographic research study on my teaching methods of digital storytelling. When we consider narrative inquiry, we think about individual stories, we think about conversations that individuals have with others, their biographies, letters, journals, other artifacts such as photos, visual artifacts. We think of observing the entire story, right, the larger story, but also paying attention to smaller stories within the larger story or the life story. And then we also consider restoring. What does that look like? So the process in which the researcher gathers stories, analyzes these for key elements of the story, and then rewrites the story to replace it in a chronological sequence. Because this study is autoethnographic, and specifically narrative autoethnographic, I'm focusing on my own teaching practices. So when I invite students to participate, it will be in a way to triangulate the data. I will be focusing on interviewing small groups in focus groups, and that will be the extent. But the purposeful sampling will be students who are secondary students who are creating digital stories during the 2-week period, and who also center their digital stories on a crucial event of some kind. But as I say, that they will be invited to the study as supplementary individuals because the study is focusing on my own teaching practices. I will be collecting data through audio and video recordings of my teaching of digital storytelling in the classroom at a secondary school. And I will be using things like intersectional culturograms, not necessarily for my students who will be teaching, but for my own self. And so an intersectional culturegram is kind of culturegram by Chang, kind of melted with intersectionality by Collins. And it's really just kind of like a mind map or a visual mapping that kind of outlines my different identities as a female, as an instructor, as a researcher, as a person who's created a digital story. All of those things will be part of it. And I will also be collecting some data from students. Again, I will be doing journaling, but they will also. And really just to see in their journaling and their mapping of the crucial events and their brainstorming, along with the digital storytelling guide, will help me to look at my practices and to consider how clear I've been, right? how that's translated to them creating their own digital stories step by step. And I will also look at data collected through most likely video recorded or audio recorded focus group interviews of secondary students. So what you see here is part of the data collection I will be doing. I will be creating a digital storytelling guide myself over my digital story that I've created, and I will ask students to do the same. So it's just filling out this guide is really important because it's then having the individual purposefully, right, intentionally think about their crucial event, right? Thinking about, how clear their voice is going to be, what kind of content they're choosing. So this is a planning guide. This is planning out what is going to go into their digital story. So I found it's a very helpful tool for students whom I have taught for many years now digital storytelling in one of my courses using computers in education. This is what we always use right here. And it has helped to make it very intentional. So coming now to the slide on analysis, and I'm using two tools of analysis really. The first one is called narrative analysis, and I pulled this right from Diute 2014. And this is going to be a tool for enabling the telling of the stories, looking at the stories and why they're told, what ways they're told, looking at language of the stories. So the story being told will be, the story of my teaching practices, and looking at how that story is being told through my journaling, how that story is being told through the focus groups of students, and even through their own digital stories. And then intersectional analysis is taking a look at deconstructing structures of power, myself as the teacher, myself as a storyteller as well, and storyteller, and also how aspects of identity like gender, myself being a female, race, myself being Latina and Caucasian, class systems, belief systems, not only my systems of belief about digital storytelling in the narrative, but other systems of belief that seem to emerge in the study. Implications for future practice. I hope to be able to bring a new understanding for myself and how I can improve my teaching practices. This is the purpose of me wanting to do an autoethnographic type of study about digital storytelling teaching practices. I also am hoping to strengthen partnership with the University of Dundee School of Education faculty, which I've started to do by joining one of their monthly circle talks, right, about research. And I've even presented to that faculty once this fall semester. But I hope to strengthen a partnership not only in those ways, but also with my own department in the University of Dundee School of Education. I want to disseminate knowledge through future conferences. I have written a proposal for NCTE, the National Council of Teachers of English, for presenting in fall of 2022 in Kentucky. I hope to also do further work in presentations with ILA, the National Council of Teachers of English Area Research, and the Society for Values in Higher Education, which I'll be attending in summer of 2021. I also would like to extend my writing into more journal manuscripts. I currently have a manuscript under review in which I'm first author, and have written with a couple of colleagues on digital storytelling teaching and peer reviewing with my Tomorrow's Teachers high school students who want to be teachers. So I hope to continue that practice in the future. And now I leave you with one last slide. Teaching digital storytelling can provide opportunities for guiding learners to critically engage with social issues such as immigration, homelessness, LGBTQ+ rights, physical and sexual abuse, political strife, many other issues, making learning relevant to students' lives. I hope you've enjoyed my presentation. If you have any questions, I will leave my contact information on the next slide.